Even when you're out running around wasting time or drinking soda or throwing rocks into the ocean, that is a moment where you're grabbing some of this life.
Welcome to Proofread, a podcast to help you read more of what you love and less of what you don't.
Hey guys, welcome to Proofread. This is Kacy. I'm your reading friend. And this is my reading friend, Tyler. And you better be nice to him. Tyler, tell us about yourself.
I'm Tyler. I read not as much as I would like, but I'm trying to read more. So I started a podcast with my reading friend, Kacy, to get me to read more for fun and for enrichment. And that's what we're here for.
Yes, for enrichment. And we're here to save you some time by telling you what books we think might be worth your time.
That's right.
And today we are starting with a book called My Friends by Fredrik Backman. You might know him from a book called A Man Called Uwe, which is a book that
Or as I read it in my head the whole time, A Man Called Ove, and
Ove,
however
right?
we pronounce OVE.
Right, which I never did pronounce it because, like I said, I never read it and I didn't see the movie, but I had this book recommended to me many times. A Man Called Uwe. Fast forward 2025, we decided to read something that was just hot off the presses, and that is this book called My Friends. So this is a tale of some friends who were together for a summer when they were 14. It was a very momentous summer. They all come from kind of hard homes. One of them becomes an artist. And the narrative isn't completely straightforward because we hear about it from the future in flashbacks. So there's some modern times with a girl who's interacting with a painting that one of these friends made when they were younger, and then meeting one of the friends as a grown-up and getting some of their backstory. It's intriguing. All right, so we're going to do reader skip?
Reader skip.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, skip. Okay.
Yes. Do you want to start or should I start?
Let me start because I have to read a quote because I feel very guilty that I just said skip. And here's why.
Okay.
This is a quote from the book. This book is about art and creativity, and I do love that part about it. And one of the people, someone in the book who encourages another artist says, you know what Mom always says? You can be whatever you want to in life as long as you don't become a critic. Not of other people and not of yourself. It's so easy to be a critic. Any coward can do that. But art doesn't need critics. Art has enough enemies already. Art needs friends. So I kind of feel bad saying this book isn't that good. Don't read it. But this is our art, Tyler. This is my art, what I'm doing right now.
What if criticism becomes your art?
Yeah, and it is. So anyway, I say skip with that in mind. Like, I know. I do think art needs friends, and I think of myself as a friend of art.
But just not to My Friends by Fredrik Backman.
Well, still a friend, a discerning friend. I'm a friend. I'm a best friend with our listener.
So you're really looking out for the listener here.
So I'm going to say skip.
Fredrik Backman did really good on A Man Called Uwe, so...
Yeah. And I do know a lot of people love this book. In fact, I was at a meeting just before this where we all ran around and said what books we're reading. It was a work meeting, and they said they're reading this book, and they love it. And I was like... But anyway, I'll say more why about that, and you tell me why you say read.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that this is not a perfect book, right? I think that is fine. For me, the question here is, when you recommend a book to someone, do you have to recommend, like, we've talked about this before, but is this like a go out, buy this book right now? Or is this a situation where, like, yeah, that's a good use of your time as a read, right?
Right.
For me, the way this book all kind of comes together, and this is, I think, probably a critique or response, let's say feedback that some Bachman gets in some of his books, is that it's just a little like so earnest and a little so sweet that the end wrap up for me is just a little too sweet to make it not feel quite real.
Almost maybe a little bit corny.
Yeah, a little bit. And I don't like kind of
saying that it's corny.
Exactly. And giving that kind of like judgment, because I think so much of it is kind of interesting and fun in the reading experience. I liked the experience of reading this book.
Oh, you did?
I did. I enjoyed it. I wanted to go back to it after I put it down, right? Like, that was for me the experience. And I'll tell you why in a minute. But the overall reason why I'm kind of like read with a question mark is I just feel like there are some moments where it just doesn't seem real. It's trying to be a realist novel that is
wraps up a little too
It's just all too
nicely. It's a little
coincidental.
coincidental.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that kind of a thing.
I get that. I'll tell you why I say skip. I say skip because when I was reading this book, I didn't like the language, and it's so devastating. Which I do think it's good to expose yourself to those things, other lifestyles, hard things. It's not all that, but just then this didn't really feel worth it to me because I didn't think it was that good.
Yeah.
If I hadn't been reading it for the pod, for our listener, I read this for you, listener, and I normally would have stopped reading this book. I didn't hate it or anything, but this is a policy that I've had since I've been out of school is like if I get sick of a book, I just quit reading it. And it is, I believe, the secret to just reading tons of books and being happy and reading a lot. Because you might return to a book later.
Sure.
Sometimes you're not in the mood. Sometimes I'm not in the mood. I might not have been in the mood when I read this book. I kind of didn't like it. And I would normally have stopped reading it pretty early in. And I would have Googled what happens to the characters because I kind of just want to see how it ends. I've done that before and there's no shame in it. It's not for a class. I'm not studying it.
I've done that with like a 4-season, 22-episode TV
Oh,
show
I've
where
done
it's
that
like,
with a TV show.
I don't have a week of my life. Just let me like figure out how this ends.
Yeah. So I kind of wasn't, I just didn't think it was that good. It just wasn't to my taste. And actually, when I finished it, I did get a big migraine. I'm not blaming the book, but maybe I just,
But it was the book's fault.
but it was the book. So don't read this. This is a warning. You'll get a migraine if you read this. No, no. But, and this is a skip. It's not bad. It's not of no merit.
It's funny, my wife and I were talking about this where there's a sense in like, at what point are you doing, you're kind of respecting the author. Like it's this weird thing. You pick up the book and you're kind of respecting the author to like hang with them for a minute to see
Yeah.
kind of how it comes together.
Willing suspension of disbelief, giving it some time.
Giving it some time and also just your time saying like, okay, you put time in this, made it through the publishing thing. I'm going to try it out till the end. I agree with you that you lose hours that way.
Yeah.
But sometimes you're also surprised by the way a book can turn around. I think the thing for me is that I liked this book less like the last quarter of it than I did the first three.
Maybe you should have quit reading it. You would like it better.
It's not to say that like every book ends perfectly and now your time is worth it. Okay, so
But why read?
yeah, my sense for the why read. So, okay, have you ever heard someone, Casey, say something like, "Oh, he was very unsentimental," right? Like in a almost like a badge, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm very unsentimental, as though it's like this badge of
Mhm.
I don't know of yeah, that's something that should be admired.
Like
your lack
being
of sentimental.
sentimental is a weakness.
Yeah, something like that, right?
Yes.
I find myself extremely sentimental. I don't know why, but I'm just sentimental. I think about things. I keep weird stuff. And this writer is very sentimental. So I can see how for some people he tips his hand a little too far. And I actually even think for me, who's someone I'm identifying as a sentimental person, thought that some of this was like a little like heavy-handed.
Mhm.
But having said that, the book is a reflection on like childhood friendship shaping you, right? And
Yeah.
all of the friends in this case were a type of friend group that like stuck to each other because the rest of their lives were madness,
Yeah.
right? And so they like found each other and held on to each other. And it was like in a real way, the story is telling is like the friend group is like survival for them.
Yeah.
Like they're escaping their dangerous homes,
Mhm.
hanging on to each other and hanging down at the beach, waiting for the day to be over. And then they have to slink back to their
Mhm. And they are shaped by this friendship because it's another friend that encourages the artist to paint.
exactly, and it shapes them in fundamental ways. I did not grow up in the rough kind of conditions that the characters in this story have, but I can really relate to this sense of I have a core group of friends that I've maintained since before this age, and especially at this age, we kind of coalesced in ways when we were independent in new ways and kind of ran around and did shenanigans together, you know? And so on a sentimental level, I could really relate to it was nice for me as a man to hear a writer talking about the way that these boys were friends with each other in ways that were profound, right?
Yeah.
And
It was profound.
were profound and meaningful. And I could so connect with that. And that's something where it felt like a part of my human experience was really being on display here. There's also a female friend character. And I had like I was friends with a bunch of guys, and we had like one classic girl that was with us all the time, you know? And I just really related to that. And the way that I feel about those friends is something I saw on display in this book. Also, Casey, I should say, the characters in this book, as they're older, reflecting back, are my exact age. there, 39 here, kind of thinking back on the way, and in some ways, kind of thinking back, I would say over the last 3 or 4 years, I've thought more seriously about my adolescence shaping me in ways that I kind of was like, "Oh, I had a good time, growing up."
It's really relatable in that way. There's such nice moments of connection, some little thoughtful gestures. I like to be a thoughtful person, but then sometimes when things are bad or with people that you meet or situations that are so devastating, like a lot of them that are described in this book, or people that you might know that have just hard things that you can't fix, it can be overwhelming, but then just to think that, like, a little bit of encouragement could change a life, and I like that because sometimes that's all I can do, I can't heal, leprosy or fund, food for people who are dying, and so but there are little things that you can do that are actually quite meaningful, so I like that.
Yeah, and I think the other part of this that I like is the charm of its, like, over heavy-handed investment in, like, creativity,
Yeah.
right? Like, as you're going through it, there's always little tidbits
Mhm.
where he's just, like, says something about being creative and, they're all it's very they're kind of like the idea of, like, seizing the day, the wildness of youth, carrying that with you, the
Mhm.
artist is kind of the only one who got
But
to,
the
like.
importance of the artist and seeing, having a different point of view.
Yeah, I thought that was really
I like
cool,
all that because I
and
buy into all that.
yeah, exactly, right?
Mhm.
So I wanna read a passage that kind of captures this. It's gonna be a part that I know you're gonna dislike, but I'm still gonna read it.
Okay.
This is kind of a reflection on the artist and what he's thinking, and it says, "Not to be mean, but healthy people aren't quite right in the head," the artist thinks. "Surely taking life for granted is the whole point of being here, because what else are we doing? We're a bunch of lonely apes on a rock on the universe. Our breath consists of 80% nitrogen, 20% oxygen, 100% anxiety. The only thing we can take for granted is that everyone we have ever met and everyone we have ever known and everyone we have ever loved will die. So, how great must our imaginations be for us to even summon up the enthusiasm to get out of bed each morning? Endless. Imagination is the only thing that stops us from thinking about death every second. And when we aren't thinking, oh, those are all our very best moments when we're wasting our lives. It's an act of magnificent rebellion to do meaningless things, to waste time, to swim and drink soda and sleep late, to be silly and frivolous, to laugh at stupid little jokes and tell stupid little stories, or to paint big paintings, the biggest you can imagine, and to try to learn to whisper in color, to look for a way to show other people this was me. These were my humans. These were our farts.
I
These were
knew
our
it was gonna
bodies.
have that.
And they were small, far too small, because they couldn't contain all our love. That's all of life, all we can hope for.
It's
It
aspirational, I like it.
He's trying to be inspiring, right?
When I thought of this as why young adult fiction, which it's not, but I imagined that it was young adult fiction, and then I liked it even better.
But I was just gonna say that line, I mean, honestly, um, theologically, I don't agree with everything he says in that moment, right? I think we are something more than just, like, on a rock waiting to die. I think there's something grand and beyond this for my own self, right? But I think that breathing into our life this moment of, even when you're out running around wasting time or drinking soda or throwing rocks into the ocean, right? Like, that is a moment where you're grabbing some of this life. I get inspired by those little thoughts, I
Yeah.
think that's enjoyable to read. But now having turned to, why I wouldn't read, I think it's a worthwhile reflection on all the things that I just talked about, for reflection on friendship and what it can do and sustain you, but it happens in pretty serious content in terms of,
Mm.
um, several of the children, as they reflect back on the story, are in abusive homes, and that abuse is narrated,
Yeah.
and,
It's a tough read in that way.
yeah, and then I think the language the children use as they're talking can be rough, like the language that 14-year-old kids hanging out at the pier.
And I'll just give you a content warning right now. This is a rated R book for language, and it has everything: drugs, domestic abuse, sexual assault, suicidal ideation. It's got it all. This is what we're here for, okay? So you can make a decision about how you want to spend your time.
And it's kind of interesting because, I haven't read any of the rest of Fredrik Backman stuff, but I did read A Man Called Uwe, and, um, that one doesn't have some of the same kind of language or content, but it does a similar thing of, if you've read that book, this offers a similar thing of reflecting back and into you learn more about the present story as you reflect back into the past stories that they're telling.
Well, let me ask you, Tyler, do you think I should read A Man Called Uwe?
I think that A Man Called Ove has the same strengths and the same flaws, which is that ultimately it's a really moving book about the relationships that we can have at any point of our life to make our life worth it, meaningful.
Okay.
But it also is pretty sweet. That's
Okay.
another one I could recommend without the content kind of
Okay, that's
warnings.
good. That's
If you're
good.
looking for a feel-good
Mhm.
sweet book, try his A Man Called Ove. I think it is a worth it read. I've heard that the Swedish film that they made on it is also excellent,
I've heard that too.
but Tom Hanks is in a film called A Man Called Otto, is the American version of it as well.
Yes, yes. I haven't seen either.
Yeah.
Okay, so what shelf are you gonna put this on?
I would put this on the shelf of a book I almost recommended to a friend. Like, I was reading the first half of this, and I was like, "I gotta recommend this to some of my friends that I grew up. This is just, like, a fun thing." And then as I got the second half, I was like, "Yeah, maybe I won't."
Maybe not. Okay,
So,
okay.
an almost recommendation.
An almost hearty recommend.
Yeah.
And I would put it on the shelf, just the shelf that's if you don't like it, quit reading it. That's the shelf that's on for me,
Yeah.
but I did keep reading it for you, listener. Okay. Well, Fredrik Backman, you've been proofread. Sometimes I listen to a podcast called Proofread, and they just tell me, and it saves me so much time. It's so handy.
It is so handy.
Yeah.
Listener out there is so grateful.
Proofread is a production of BYU Radio and is produced by Jeff Simpson with help from Erica Price, Becca Hurley, and Lisa Valentine Clark. Find us on YouTube at Proofread Podcast for video clips and more. And please follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Thanks for spending your time with us today, and happy reading.